in the quietest corners of our collective consciousness, in that sacred space where dreams and ancestral memories intertwine like threads of light, lies an echo, an ancestral whisper that resonates not in our ears, but in our very blood, in the very structure of our DNA. It is a story of origin so vast and so profound that it has been veiled by myth, suppressed by dogma, and relegated to the realms of fantasy. It is the forbidden chronicle of our creators, the Anunnaki. Today, Soul Seeker, you who have felt that our official history is an incomplete narrative, that there are pages torn from our book of life, we embark together on a sacred journey. A journey to unveil the meaning of that ancient name which the clay tablets whisper as those who from heaven to earth came. We are not here simply to explore Sumerian myths. We are here to undertake an archaeology of the soul, to consider the bold and transformative possibility that those ancient gods were not metaphors for the wind and the harvest, but tangible beings of flesh and blood, architects of worlds who once walked the earth as giants. To understand this saga, we must first expand our conception of time. We must dare to look beyond the comfortable limits of known history and delve into what some call forbidden archaeology. We must consider the possibility of extreme human antiquity, a deep past where our species coexisted with other beings, other humanities, for millions of years. A vast temporal canvas, deliberately erased, upon which a cosmic epic was painted. Our story begins not on Earth, but far away, in the vastness of deep space, on a wandering world called Nibiru. Imagine a majestic planet, a twilight kingdom caught in an immense elliptical orbit of 3,600 years, a journey that periodically brings it closer to our solar system, only to then pull it away into the darkness of interstellar space. This world, home to the Anunnaki, faced an existential crisis. Its atmosphere, its vital shield, was fading, exposing its civilization to the harsh radiations of the cosmos. Their most brilliant scientists discovered a single desperate solution: gold. Not as a metal for vanity or commerce, but for a unique, life-saving property. Pulverized into a superfine white powder and dispersed into their upper atmosphere, gold could act as a reflective shield, healing the wound in their sky and saving their world from a slow death. And so, with the fate of their species at stake, they undertook the greatest mission in their history. A journey across the solar system to the seventh planet, our planet, Earth. The only place they knew possessed this precious metal in abundance. To understand the saga that is about to unfold, we must know its protagonists. Not as distant gods, but as complex individuals, moved by ambition, wisdom, rivalry, and love. At the top of their hierarchy is Anu, the celestial father, the King of Kings, whose throne resides on the distant Nibiru. His authority is absolute, but his perspective often remote. The real drama unfolds on Earth, between his two main suns, two cosmic forces in eternal tension. On one side, Enlil, the commander of the Earth mission, the god of air and storm. He is authoritarian, strict, a relentless enforcer of Anu's law. For him, the mission is paramount, and any obstacle, including humanity, must be managed or eliminated. In direct opposition is his half-brother, Enki, the god of water, of wisdom, and of magic. He is the most brilliant scientist of the Anunnaki, a master geneticist, but also a rebel with a compassionate heart. It is he who sees in Earth not just a source of resources, but a garden of infinite potential. Alongside them, other key figures populate this drama. Ninhursag, the great mother goddess, the chief medical officer, whose expertise in genetics will be crucial for the events to come. Inanna, or Ishtar, the formidable and passionate goddess of love and war, whose ambition and desires often sow chaos.
And Ningishzida, whom other cultures would come to know as Thoth, the master scribe, the guardian of wisdom, magic, and the secrets of creation. And it is here, in this family of gods, with their alliances and bitter rivalries, that the fate of Earth and of a new species yet to be born will be forged. After their long journey, the Anunnaki landed in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. There they established their first settlement, their command center, a city they called Eridu, the home in the faraway, and they began the arduous task of extracting gold from the waters and the depths of the earth. But this exhausting work was not performed by the leaders of the pantheon. It was assigned to a class of lesser gods, the Igigi. For thousands of years, these beings toiled without rest, digging mines and canals under the scorching sun, enduring a burden that became unbearable. The ancient chronicles, like the epic of Atrahasis, tell us of a crucial moment. The Igigi, fed up with their pitiful situation, mutinied. In an unprecedented act of defiance, they burned their tools, abandoned the mines, and marched to surround the temple of their commander, Enlil. It was the first strike, the first cry for freedom in the recorded history of our planet. The rebellion of the Igigi plunged the Earth mission into an unsustainable crisis. The flow of gold to Nibiru stopped. The Anunnaki Council convened an emergency meeting. It was then that Enki, the brilliant scientist, proposed a bold, controversial solution that would change the fate of the planet forever. The creation of a new being, a primitive worker, who could take on the burdens of the Igigi, a being that would be created in their own image and likeness. This being would be humanity. The creation of our species, according to these narratives, was not an act of divine magic in an idyllic garden, but a deliberate, complex, and sophisticated process of genetic engineering carried out in a laboratory. The project was led by Enki with the crucial assistance of the medical expert Ninhursag.
Ancient texts describe this process poetically and symbolically. The mixing of the flesh and blood of a sacrificed god, a being who had intelligence, with the clay of the earth. Modern interpreters see in this a clear description of a laboratory procedure.
the combination of Anunnaki DNA with that of a native Earth hominid, most likely Homo erectus. The first successful human specimen was named Adamu, which translates to earthling or made of clay, a clear precursor to the biblical Adam. Thus was born the Lulu, the primitive worker. There are those who have sought a bridge between this esoteric narrative and modern science, and have found it in the heart of our own genetic code. One of the most notable differences between humans and other great apes is that they have 24 pairs of chromosomes, while we have 23. Genetic evidence shows that our chromosome 2 is the result of a fusion of two ancestral primate chromosomes. What is extraordinary about this fusion is its precision and its apparent suddenness in the evolutionary timeline, approximately 200,000 years ago. Some argue that such a precise and beneficial event is statistically improbable as a result of random mutation. They propose it as evidence of an intentional act, a genetic signature, the sacred scar of our intervened creation. This fusion, they argue, not only differentiated us genetically, but also activated the potential for our most extraordinary human capacities: deep empathy, compassion, intuition, and the ability for self-healing. It made us, in essence, human by design. But what was the ultimate purpose behind our creation? Here, the narratives diverge and present us with a fundamental enigma about our own identity. The most widespread and pragmatic view holds that we were created for a servile purpose, to be a slave race, the Lulu, destined to work in the gold mines and to serve the gods in their temples, freeing them from all labor. However, other perspectives offer a much more elevated and hopeful vision. They propose that the creation of humanity and the subsequent development of civilizations like Atlantis were part of a great human experiment.
From this point of view, the objective was not slavery, but the creation of a culture capable of hosting a complex consciousness, a vessel that could resonate with the consciousness of the planet and eventually facilitate a spiritual awakening on a galactic scale. A third vision, darker and more metaphysical, suggests that the Anunnaki manipulated our DNA not only for work, but also to control our emotional bodies. According to this theory, human emotional energy, especially that of low vibration, such as fear, anger, and suffering, serves as a food source, an energetic sustenance for certain beings of the fourth dimension. This inherent duality in our genesis, part terrestrial animal, part Anunnaki god, seems to be a direct echo of the central conflict between our own creators, a tension that defines the human condition to this day. The central narrative engine of the entire Anunnaki saga, the tectonic fault that runs through their history and ours, is the deep and irreconcilable ideological rivalry between the two half-brothers, Enlil and Enki. This conflict
defines not only their relationship, but the very destiny of humanity, as each of us carries within us the echo of this battle. Enlil, as commander of the Earth mission and legitimate heir to Anu's throne, embodies the principle of authority, order, and control. He is portrayed as a strict leader, often severe and jealous of his power, who sees humanity primarily as a workforce, a biological asset, a slave race created for a specific purpose. As the god of the air and storms, his decrees are often relentless. He does not hesitate to resort to mass punishments, including the Great Flood, when he considers humanity to have become unruly, too numerous, or to have transgressed his laws. He is the voice of dogma, hierarchy, and blind obedience. Enki, on the other hand, represents wisdom, creativity, science, and compassion. As the brilliant geneticist who designed us, he feels a deep paternal affection and an inescapable sense of responsibility for his creation.
He is presented as a constant protector of humanity, a rebel who repeatedly intervenes to save us from his brother's wrath. He is the giver of knowledge, the one who seeks to empower humanity, not to control it. He is the voice of sovereignty, curiosity, and the freedom of the soul. It is in this context of divine conflict that the biblical story of original sin can be reinterpreted, not as a moral transgression, but as a technological, political, and spiritual event of incalculable consequences. In this view, the Garden of Eden was the Sumerian Eden, the abode of the righteous, the enclosure where the Anunnaki lived and where the first humans worked. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was not a literal tree, but a metaphor for the knowledge of self-awareness and, crucially, the ability to procreate. The god who forbade eating from the fruit was Enlil, who wished to keep humanity in a state of servile innocence, unable to reproduce on their own so he could control their population. The tempting serpent was none other than Enki, whose symbol was the intertwined serpent of wisdom and DNA. It was he who, in an act of love and defiance, granted his creations, Adam and Eve, the knowledge so they could become self-sufficient. The sin was not disobedience, but the first step towards sovereignty. The expulsion from paradise was Enlil's punitive and furious response to this insubordination, casting humanity into a world of struggle and mortality, but also of freedom. The civilization that flourished in Mesopotamia under the rule of the Anunnaki was a literal theocracy. The ancient Sumerians did not see their gods as distant ethereal entities, but as physical rulers, powerful lords who lived among them. Their temple cities were dominated by ziggurats, imposing structures that functioned as divine residences, administrative centers, and astronomical observatories, true stairways to heaven.
The cult statues in the temples were not mere representations. They were considered literal incarnations of the gods and required a dedicated priesthood for their constant care, which included dressing, feeding, and appeasing them.
Physically, the Anunnaki are described as anthropomorphic, but of an imposing stature, giants among men. They are often depicted with horned helmets, a symbol of their divinity, and wearing garments of melam, a mysterious substance or technology that conferred upon them a terrifying splendor, an aura of power that could induce a physical tingling and a reverential fear in the flesh of mortals who witnessed it. The tension between Enlil and Enki reached its climax with Enlil's decision to annihilate humanity through a global cataclysm, the Great Flood. The pretext was that humanity had become too noisy, corrupt, and unruly. The real reason, perhaps, was his anger over the unauthorized mixing of the seed of the gods with the daughters of men, and his desire to wipe the slate clean and start the experiment anew. But once again, Enki thwarted his brother's plan. In a final act of defiance and protection, he warned a loyal and wise human in a dream, Ziusudra, whom other cultures would know as Atrahasis or Utnapishtim, the precursor to the biblical Noah, and gave him precise instructions to build an ark and preserve the seed of life on earth. The flood came, swept the world, but humanity, thanks to its creator, survived. After the devastation of the flood and their eventual decision to withdraw from direct supervision of Earth, the Anunnaki did not completely relinquish their control. They implemented a system of indirect rule, more subtle but equally effective, to maintain their influence over the reconstructed world. The main mechanism was the institution of royalty. Specific human lineages were selected, often those with a higher concentration of Anunnaki DNA, and were granted the divine right of kings to rule as intermediaries between the gods and the people. The function of these priest-kings was to enforce the divine laws, manage the resources of the temples, and ensure that the human population remained productive and, above all, obedient. Organized religion itself, with its complex rituals, its hierarchical priesthoods, and its unquestionable dogmas, was established as a sophisticated and powerful system of social control.
The temples were not just places of worship, but economic and administrative centers that centralized power and reinforced the Anunnaki command structure. There are those who propose that this mechanism of control never truly disappeared, but simply became hidden, more secretive. They maintain that the hybrid Anunnaki human lineages, sometimes described with reptilian or draconic symbolism, have continued throughout history, forming a hidden global elite, given names like the Illuminati or the Babylonian Brotherhood, that manipulates world governments, finances, and media to keep humanity in a perpetual state of fear, conflict, and servitude, from which, according to some theories, they can energetically feed.
On the other hand, the counterpart to this narrative of control is the story of resistance. There are those who believe that the ancient and liberating knowledge of this pre-cataclysmic era, the truth about our origins and our true potential, was not completely lost. It was preserved and transmitted in secret through esoteric orders and secret societies, such as the Knights Templar. According to this view, these groups became the guardians of this forbidden wisdom, awaiting the right moment to return it to humanity. Thus, human history is redefined as a continuous struggle between the forces of dogmatic control, the legacy of Enlil, and the impulses toward freedom and knowledge, the legacy of Enki. The ideological battle of the Anunnaki thus becomes the founding archetype of all subsequent human conflicts, from religious wars to political divisions, with humanity unconsciously playing out on a planetary stage the ancient and bitter dispute of its creators. The Earth in these narratives is not an isolated planet, but a nexus of intergalactic activity, a cosmic chessboard. The Anunnaki were not the only visitors. Other traditions speak of a central conflict between the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians. The Anunnaki, with their agenda of control, and the Pleiadians, described as a collective of enlightened beings whose agenda is one of guidance and spiritual assistance to help humanity make an evolutionary leap into an age of light.
There is also talk of crucial alliances, such as the treaty between the Anunnaki and the Arcturians, which was the basis of the human experiment developed in Atlantis, and of the presence of the Syrians, described as feline gods who built the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx to keep star portals open. In this complex galactic landscape, the great wars of Earth's antiquity, like the conflict between Atlantis and Lemuria, can be reinterpreted not as mere human conflicts, but as proxy wars of the larger cosmic drama. Atlantis, with its focus on technology, power, and its direct connection with the Anunnaki, would represent their agenda of control. Lemuria, with its emphasis on spirituality, consciousness, and harmony, would embody the Pleiadian agenda of liberation. Their mutual destruction serves as a powerful and tragic allegory of the catastrophic consequences of this unresolved cosmic dualism, a wound in the memory of the planet that we are still trying to heal today. To understand the magnitude of the Anunnaki civilization, we must explore their extraordinary technologies, which ranged from advanced physics to the manipulation of consciousness and the very fabric of reality. In southern Africa, millions of circular stone ruins have been identified, which, according to some perspectives, are the remains of a vast ancient energy grid. This grid, based on principles of free energy, used the power of sound and frequency to generate immense energy fields, employed both for gold mining and for powering a global civilization.
The Great Pyramid of Giza in this view was not a tomb, but a harmonic power plant designed to harness and transmit the vibrations of the earth. The mastery of sound was fundamental. Myths from around the world, from Egypt to the Andes, recount the ability to move 100-ton stone blocks with apparent ease using the power of acoustic levitation. This was not a fantasy, but the application of a lost science that understood that matter is, in essence, frozen vibration. This knowledge is the precursor to modern sound healing therapies, which use specific frequencies, like the legendary solfeggio frequencies, to restore harmony in the body's energy centers and promote well-being.
The Anunnaki's interest in gold may have transcended their atmospheric needs. There are theories revolving around monatomic gold, an exotic state of matter that is said to possess extraordinary properties. The ability to alter consciousness, prolong life, and facilitate interdimensional conductivity. It is the secret of alchemy, the transmutation not only of metals, but of the soul itself. This concept is intertwined with the science of ascension. It is postulated that the Anunnaki possessed the technology and knowledge to create and use stargates and wormholes. This technology was not merely for physical transport, but was fundamental to the transfiguration of the physical body into a light body, a vehicle for ascension to higher planes of existence. Underlying all this science and philosophy is the universal principle of sacred geometry. Geometry, it is argued, is the encoded language of creation, the fingerprint of divine consciousness in the fabric of reality. The recurring presence of specific geometric forms and mathematical constants like the golden ratio in ancient structures worldwide is presented as proof of a global and technologically advanced pre-Diluvian civilization, which understood that the universe is, in essence, thought, vibration, and form. Anunnaki technology, therefore, is revealed to us not as a series of external mechanical tools, but as a direct extension of consciousness. They were architects of reality, using energy grids and sacred geometry to tune the planet to a specific frequency for their purposes. A frequency whose echoes we are only just beginning to remember. A common thread in most of these ancient astronaut narratives is the promise of the return of the gods, an event that, it is said, is intrinsically linked to the return of the planet Nibiru on its 3,600-year orbit. There are even those who claim to have calculated a specific return date in our near future, using a combination of astronomical cycles and ancient prophecy. This return is expected to herald a new era for humanity, marked by the reintroduction of advanced technology and lost wisdom, but also by the possibility of significant global upheaval.
But should we interpret this return only as a physical event? Or is it perhaps also a powerful metaphor for the resurgence of suppressed knowledge in human consciousness?
The growing fascination with these alternative stories, the decoding of ancient texts, and the widespread public interest can be seen as the return of the Anunnaki's influence and legacy to the spirit of our time. It is an awakening. And so we arrive at the heart of the mystery, at the fundamental question that this vast and complex saga poses to each of us. What is our true role in this cosmic narrative? From one perspective, we are the tragic product of genetic engineering, created as a slave species to serve extraterrestrial masters. Our history has been manipulated, our memory erased, and our true heritage suppressed by systems of religious and political control that, according to some, persist to this day. From another perspective, however, we are human by design, intentionally endowed with extraordinary capacities for compassion, empathy, creativity, and self-healing. We are the central participants in a cosmic experiment whose ultimate goal is the raising of consciousness, the fusion of heaven and earth within our own being. Perhaps this entire saga, with its gods and its battles, its technologies and its cataclysms, can be understood as a powerful modern myth. It is not about whether it is literally true in every detail, but about what it reveals about our collective psyche at this precise moment in our evolution. The resurgence of this narrative in the global consciousness may be a sign, a collective dream, indicating that humanity is at a turning point, desperately searching for a new sense of origin and purpose in a world where old paradigms are no longer sufficient to contain our deepest longings. The story of the Anunnaki offers us a source code for an alternative and complete worldview. And the conclusion drawn from this vast and complex tapestry is that humanity, right now, is at a crossroads.
By confronting this suppressed history, we are presented with the opportunity to reclaim our past, to heal the ancient division between Enlil and Enki that we carry within, to awaken our latent divine potential, and finally, to choose our own destiny in the cosmos, free from the ancient conflicts and fear-based systems of control. If this journey through the echoes of our creators has resonated in the deepest part of your being, if it has awakened questions you thought were dormant, if it has ignited a spark of recognition in your soul, I invite you to honor that feeling. It is no coincidence. It is the call of your own stellar heritage. I invite you to join our community of consciousness explorers by subscribing to this channel. Together, we can continue to unveil the mysteries of our past to illuminate the path to our collective future. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for joining me on this sacred journey. May the chronicle of the Anunnaki, with all its light and all its shadow, serve not as a tale of servitude, but as a map toward our own sovereignty. May it inspire us to question everything, to seek the truth within ourselves, and to always remember that we carry in our blood the potential for both tyranny and transcendence.
The story of the Anunnaki is not just a story about gods who came from the stars. It is a story about the God waiting to awaken within each of us. And its final message is a choice. A choice between fear and love, between servitude and freedom, between forgetting and remembering. The choice is ours, now. May the unfathomable peace that surpasses all understanding, may the profound wisdom that guides your every step, and may the unconditional love that embraces all and heals all of the eternal ages illuminate and abundantly bless your path, now and forever. May it be so.
If you liked this content, hit the like button, share it with someone who might be interested in this topic, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.